Hey, this episode is brought to you by SunsetLakeCBD.com. It's Cyber Monday. But in fact, well, I can't tell if they're having basically an extended Black Friday sale or if they're calling it a Cyber Monday. It doesn't matter. Head to SunsetLakeCBD.com today. For today only, it's 30% off of all products and 70% off Keef. What is that Keef stuff, Matt?
Keef is the very fine stuff you'll find at the bottom of your grinder. It's very potent, so that's a pretty interesting sale they got there.
I can just hear Matt already thinking like, hey, will he hear me if I'm clicking on my keyboard during the show? The sale ends tonight, so act fast for huge savings at SunsetLakeCBD.com. For me, I got to say, it is a race between the tincture and the solve as to what I use more. I'm using the solve for more stuff.
I used the dropper the other day. Is that the solve?
That's the tincture.
Oh, wow.
And I use that. The tincture I do for sleeping, which has been fantastic. It has got me almost totally off the Ambien, which I'm psyched about because awesome. Now I can remember, my kids' names. And the salve has been fantastic. For other people use it for sore muscles. For me, I use it for eczema. I mean, it's not called for that, but I just slapped it on and I can't stop using it for it. And it's been quite helpful, actually. But your mileage may vary on that one. But everybody speaks very highly of the smokables, including our resident expert, Matt. And we have gummy bears that are fantastic, full of the CBD, infused coffee with CBD, which is like my weekend blend. Check it out. And today is the day to check it out, folks, because it's 30% off of everything. It's 70% off of Keef. SunsetLakeCBD.com. Check it out. Regenerative farming practices. They have great business practices as well. It's a great company. I couldn't feel more comfortable promoting this product in this company than I do. SunsetLakeCBD.com. Check it out today. Okay, now time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Monday, November 30th, 2020. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Joe Biden fills out his economic and comms teams. We got the good, the bad, and the ugly. Meanwhile, as experts fear a holiday COVID surge, Moderna's continued trials have excelled, and they now seek emergency authorization for their vaccine. Meanwhile, the CDC releases a Kansas study showing the efficacy of mask wearing for communities. We are now 12 days out from a government shutdown and months overdue for a COVID economic relief package as evictions loom, food pantries struggle. Iran promises retaliation for its assassinated nuclear scientist. Republicans start to pretend they're all about deficits again. And they also, meanwhile, vow to obstruct Joe Biden's judges. The Supreme Court bars New York State from reimposing COVID restrictions on religious gatherings. And New York, LA, Denver, San Francisco piloting programs to send mental health pros instead of cops. And in wake of the Black Friday strike, Amazon workers in Alabama want a vote to unionize. Meanwhile, speaking of strikes, almost 250 million people are striking in India across all industries and largely against neoliberalism. Meanwhile, donors sue over the Trump failure to find voter fraud. Sorry, guys. You got to take it for a ride. All this and more on today's program. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a calm and not necessarily abbreviated Thanksgiving, but a smaller one than you're used to having. But I hope that it was still pleasant and enjoyable. I hope you did not have to travel very much for your sake, and also for the sake of the health of the country. I am here with Emma Vigeland. Emma, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was pretty good, pretty low key. Had some wine, had some mashed potatoes, my favorite Thanksgiving food, which you balk at. Lots of gravy. I had it on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And no, last night I didn't have it, but the leftovers, they were potent.
I have a feeling there were probably a higher degree of leftovers this year for everybody than normal because people are not used to calibrating.
Food. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, yes, I enjoyed myself quite a bit. I also drank and then ate a little bit, and then just mostly sweets. It was mostly sweets for me. That's basically what I did. I had about 3 pies. What about you guys? Brendan, Matt?
Matt, you want to go first?
Yeah, I ate a bunch of a fudge my mom sent, so that was delicious. And I had some mahi-mahi that my girlfriend prepared, so it was pretty delicious Thanksgiving.
The classic mahi-mahi fudge Thanksgiving dinner that people have, of course.
The settler dinner, yeah.
That, you're a part of the left's broader war and hatred of Thanksgiving with that kind of dish.
Matt's from North Dakota, so you know that's the traditional Thanksgiving meal.
Right.
Yeah, mahi-mahi is super easy to get in North Dakota.
The mahi-mahi and the fudge. What about you, Brendan?
Had a very traditional Thanksgiving with my parents at their apartment and small group. I wore a mask the whole time because I had been traveling in the past few weeks. Got a lot of grief for wearing the mask, but showed them some, graphic images from Twitter, and they agreed I should be wearing masks. So
there you go.
It was good.
Good for you. All right. Well done. Well, let's tune into what was going on at Fox and Friends. And meanwhile, there was a lot of people who traveled. Airplane travel. It's one thing you travel in your car and you don't get out. I mean, that's the one thing. You travel in your car, you don't get out. You go to places, maybe I saw my parents who have been more or less like isolated. I mean, sadly, but super isolated. And so, as long as we didn't stop with the kids, and we've been very careful, we get testing and whatnot, that we went to visit. So it was very small Thanksgiving, but we were there. But there are a lot of people traveling on planes and whatnot. Here's Fox and Friends arguing about mask wearing, which is
still,
it's stunning. Up sound, please. We, incidentally, are working on a new video system that is going to be rolled out, hopefully, within the coming weeks. So you're going to enjoy that.
I'm learning about this right now.
Oh, yeah.
Said one thing over the weekend that I thought was kind of troubling, but probably realistic. And she said, if you traveled or if you were with family outside of your normal bubble, just assume that you've got the coronavirus. And she suggested that people get a test within a week if they were out and about and traveled this week. And if you're in your house around your family members, you should probably wear a mask so you don't infect your family.
Yeah, if you traveled, then you have to play by the rules, and we hope that everyone does, just to stay safe so that we don't infect other people. That's great news about the vaccine. They're bringing it in on those airplanes so that it's ready to go as soon as the FDA does approve this. Dr. Jeanette Neshwat, she was talking about the vaccines earlier on Fox and Friends First. Watch this.
We don't want to rush this vaccine. So once they meet on December 10th, the earliest that these vaccines will be shipped out would be the very next day. So that's what we're hoping for. So far in the trials and the studies that we've had, which included thousands of volunteers who have already received the vaccine, there has been no severe life-threatening allergic reactions or adverse reactions. So that is very reassuring. And I do believe by, the last 2 weeks of December, we're going to be getting these vaccines, and it's ultimately going to save lives. So I'm super excited about that.
The New York Post is reporting that in the UK, they just got 2 million more doses of the vaccine, and they're rolling it out in just a few days, Will.
I think this point can be underlined, highlighted, repeated over and over. It is absolutely stunning how quickly this vaccine made its way to market, to distribution. Operation Warp Speed, an absolute success. That should be repeated over and over. A process that normally takes years has been accelerated to take place within a couple of months. I will say this, Steve, I'm not ready to start wearing a mask around my family. I might be like a lot of Americans. I'm going to hold on to a little bit of this, I don't know what we'll call it, individual spirit, but I'm not going to be putting on a mask around my family.
I'm just reporting what the experts are saying.
No.
Because, Will, think about this. You go out and you're at Grandma's house, and then you come home, and Dr. Burke said, if you have in your unit people who are over 65, you got to protect them. So you would hate to have, somebody my age give it to somebody a little older or vice versa.
Yeah. But then if, you give it to them, that would be bad. But if you wear a mask, you won't have your individual spirit.
And you're not that cool, right? Right? You're not the Marlboro man smoking cigarettes and being the stereotypical American cool guy.
You're not like you're all of a sudden you're one of the drones. You're not like, I'm going galt with this whole thing with the mask. I mean, it's just absurd at this point that the slightest precautions that you can take, you wear a mask when you're around other people. I mean, look. Especially
after coming off a plane. I mean, they were really doing the bare minimum there.
The bare minimum. Meanwhile, I can't believe how Will Cain is inhibiting his individualism by sitting so far away from his hosts.
I know. Why don't they go lick each other's faces?
Well, see, that's a measure that sort of accentuates your individualism by separating you from the rest of your coworkers. So you get more space.
When you get more space.
Yes, they call it the Randian desk.
There you. Just in case you are one of those people who have family members who are still saying the absurdity of mask wearing is not helpful. Report out by the CDC. Researchers analyzed the coronavirus infection rates in Kansas following a statewide mask mandate. They found that counties that chose to enforce the mandate saw their cases decrease. Counties that chose to opt out saw their cases continue to rise.
I don't believe it.
I know this is hard for you to believe. I know it's very hard because for a long time, Emma was a huge mask denier. She didn't even believe that masks exist.
I know. I was all about the gaiters. I could believe in those, but because those,
But the mask, she didn't even believe that they were real things.
Right,
and
right.
then we had to show her some masks. And then she was like, okay.
Cool.
Dr. Aaron Carroll, a professor at Indiana University School of Medicine, so it's not the coastal elites, said this adds to the growing body of evidence that says large, widespread masking helps to slow the spread of COVID.
Why are we still doing this? We're still doing this. It's November, soon to be December. I mean, and they're talking about a vaccine. Like, by the way, isn't it coincidental that the FDA is meeting the day before the government is set to shut down on this vaccine?
Good idea that they do that. But now they just caution the findings were consistent with declines in coronavirus cases observed in 15 states in the District of Columbia. However, this is not a peer reviewed. It was not a controlled experiment. But the Kansas mask requirement went into effect on July 3rd when coronavirus cases were rising across the state. But 81 counties opted out of the mandate. as permitted by state law. The other 24 counties, which account for the majority of the state's population, chose to require that masks be worn in public places. Though rates were considerably higher in the 24 counties that required masks, this is over the course of the 2 months, they brought the growth of cases under control and even reduced them. The counties that didn't require masks saw their cases increase. So on average, the counties that required masks saw a 6% reduction in cases. That is calculated as a 7-day rolling average. In contrast, the counties that opted out saw a 100% increase.
6% decrease, 100% increase. I'm not a math lady, but can you break that down for me, what that means?
Well, I can only tell you that there was, in places where people didn't wear masks, the rate of infection grew exponentially. And
Makes
in
sense.
places where they wore masks, even though there was more people, right? These are more populous counties, it went down. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen, that you can point your, I mean, I guess it's a little bit late to tell your crazy uncle at Thanksgiving, but you can Zoom and tell them and let them know that they should be wearing masks. Meanwhile, I wonder if those guys are going to give up their individuality and get a vaccine on that Fox and Friends. I have a feeling they might.
They might.
I have a feeling
they might. Well, it's because Operation Warp Speed was such a success, and it's the Trump vaccine, which is what they're going to start calling it, by the way. That's just a preview of
if
their
that gets them to
next
take it,
narrative.
by all means.
Fine.
But just a note, Pfizer is already shipping the vaccine. They have already started to produce it. They've been producing it this whole time. Not the whole time, but they started very early in the production. They are already shipping it. Understand that is all happening with the help of over $1.5 billion from the U.S. government. So Pfizer wasn't in Operation Warp Speed. They took the money on the back end, but they took it up front to get it out there. Money's fungible. They didn't need it because Biogen, the company that they were working with, got $500 million from the Germans.
And that's different from the Moderna vaccine.
And Moderna has actually got the money directly from the U.S. government.
Yes.
Now, it's good that we had 2 or 3 of these companies working on this. We could have also even had a 4th, and that could have been the U.S. government just taking the money and also trying to develop it. But
well, that would be socialism,
I
Sam.
understand.
Jesus Christ.
Sorry about that. Hey, folks, it's time for some sponsors. Flu season often lines up with our holiday plans. We don't want to get the flu this time around. Liquid IV can help support your immune system with increased hydration and essential vitamins. It's perfect for staying hydrated on holiday flights, which you should not be taking anyways, but also on long road trips and in situations where maybe you are drinking a little too much alcohol and you need to get hydrated. 1 stick of Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water, you get 2 to 3 times of the amount of hydration as plain water. Liquid IV has the optimal ratio of glucose, sodium, and potassium, delivers water and nutrients into the bloodstream, the perfect balance to help you hydrate more quickly and more effectively than water alone. They have new flavors, sweet and juicy guava, crisp watermelon. I have not tried that.
That sounds good.
That does sound good. And comforting apple pie. Liquid
That's
IV.
right up your alley.
Yes, it is. Liquid IV contains 5 essential vitamins, more vitamin C than an orange, and as much potassium as a banana. Now, for me, you guys know which one I like. This is it right here. I got the matcha going because it gives me a little energy and it keeps me hydrated simultaneously. They've got great other great products. I can't remember what the name of there's one that has like I think it was a limited run. I can't remember what the flavor was, but I try them all. But I got to say, I go with the matcha as like my go-to. And that's what I'm doing in the morning. It's just like competing between the coffee and that stuff. So I get a little dehydrated with the caffeine and I rehydrate and speed up a little bit with the matcha. But back in the day when I used to travel, I would take a couple of packs in my travel bag and kept me hydrated on flights. Liquid IV is available nationwide at Walmart in the beverage section, or you can get 25% off when you go to liquidiv.com. Use the promo code MajorityRep at checkout. That's 25% off anything you order Use the promo code MajorityRep at liquidiv.com. Get hydration today at liquidiv.com. Promo code MajorityRep. Also, I do not wear bras. However, we have been promoting Third Love for quite some time. Third Love, you can find your new favorite bra with high quality, comfy styles starting at just $45. I've had multiple.
It's a great site. I have some of them.
Do you really?
I actually do. Yeah.
My daughter just got some from there too. She was.
I'm sure.
She was
I'm
over
sure
the
she'll
moon.
be happy and loves that you're saying this on air.
Yes, she's excited about it. Every Third Love bra is made with signature memory foam cups, no slip straps, and the scratch-free band. And there are more than 80 sizes. So they have an online fit finder quiz, helps you find the right size and styles that's right for you. Over 15 million women have taken the quiz to date. Third Love helps you identify your breast size and shape, and then it finds the styles that fit your body. They have a perfect fit promise. In fact, this is one of the big things. So we've had two different Third Love official triers in the past, official ones.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what number 2 said. The idea that I had 60 days to try out bras drew me in. But in the end, I don't think I've ever had a better experience buying clothing online. Certainly not when it comes to bras. The Fit Finder worked like a charm. The choice of styles, amazing. Both bras I ordered were a perfect fit. They are incredibly comfortable, cute, and subtle. I don't know what else you want to hear, folks. You can check out all the exclusive styles at thirdlove.com. Like I say, they have modern stripes to their #1 rated 24/7 classic t-shirt bra. Third Love knows there's a perfect bra for everyone. So right now, they're offering my listeners 10% off your first order. Go to thirdlove.com/majority. Find your perfect fitting bra. Get 10% off your first purchase. That's thirdlove.com/majority for 10% off today. Don't forget, you get 60 days to return it if you don't love it. Exchanges are free. And lastly, this I do use. And it's a great holiday gift. I think I sent one of these to my dad a couple of years ago. Harry's holiday shave sets. Here are some of the reasons this holiday season you should think about Harry's. Harry's makes super sharp blades. They last. The holiday shave sets come in prepackaged, handsome holiday-themed gift box. Plus, Harry's blade refills are as low as $2 each. So that person that you gift will be saving money over time. It is the gift that literally keeps giving.
Wow.
Yep. Plus, they're backed by a 100% quality guarantee, which means if he or she does not love their shave, you're going to get a full refund. You can make it personal by engraving the razor handle.
That's cool.
Yep. And 1% of each sale is donated to charitable organizations. For me, the thing I love best about Harry's, well, I'm not going to lie. It's not as expensive as the crazy shavers that you get in the thing. But also, I like the look of the shaver. It's like a classic. I got a classic chrome-looking handle, not the buffy like Rambo that you get at the stores. The blades have the thinner blade heads, and that's important for me. My asymmetrical nostrils. So Harry's, I love. They've been supporting this show for a long time, and they also make me clean up nicely when I go and do something that I need to clean up for, which is less and less these days. This holiday season, new customers can get $5 off plus free shipping on any Harry's limited edition holiday shave set when you go to harrys.com/majority report. Sets come with a weighted handle, 3 razor cartridges, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover, all packaged in a handsome holiday gift box. Don't give socks this year. Delight the guys in your life with Harry's. To claim your $5 off plus free shipping, go to harrys.com/majority report. And lastly, folks, don't forget you can support this program by becoming a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you get the whole show commercial free. And also, we've got swag at shop.majorityreportradio.com.
Swaggy swag.
Yep. And just a reminder, this show plays on Peacock on the Choice channel at 5 p.m., 10 p.m., and then it runs through the evening. So if you miss it on any of our other outlets, the first hour of this program plays on Peacock, and it's got better graphics. I don't know what to tell you. It's got nicer graphics.
Yeah, I love the look of it on Peacock. It's nice to check out.
Yep, check it out. And then also, come for the Seder, stay for the Mehdi and Zerlina.
Right, exactly.
Yep, there you go.
Mehdi is killing it with these interviews.
Yes, he does some great interviews over there. So check that out. All right, let's get into. We will get into Joe Biden's picks. Give you a sense of where we're at with this. I mean, nothing's sort of like barn burning in terms of these picks one way or another.
Except for in Twitter land.
In Twitter land, things get a little bit uptight. But first, before we go there, let's check in with the outgoing president, the lame duck, the extremely agitated lame duck, Donald Trump. Here he is. This is clip number one. He's asked a question, and he wants to make sure that he's just going to soak in. It's like, you've had times where it's like, this is the last week or two. I'm in, a senior in high school.
Right.
Or this is my last time in college, or this is my last time at this job. Or, I got a couple more days of my vacation. I went to the lake this summer or something like that.
Taking it all in.
You take it in. He's trying to soak it all in. That's what Donald Trump seems to be doing here.
This election was a fraud. I mean, they have Biden beating Obama on Obama's vote in areas that mattered in terms of the election, in swing states. And yet he's losing to Obama all over the place. But he's beating Obama in swing states, which are the states that mattered for purposes of the election. So, no, I can't say that at all. I think it's a possibility. They're trying to look between you people. Don't talk to me that way. You're just a lightweight. Don't talk to me that way. I'm the president of the United States. Don't ever talk to the president that way. All right, I'm going to go with another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he's just playing the hits as he leaves office, right? Going after reporters, sense of grandiosity, talking down to people, being abusive. He just wants to remind everybody of the charming guy he is before he leaves, and apparently might announce a run in 2024 that he may not follow through on during Biden's inauguration. We'll see.
I can't imagine a greater thing on the wish list of Democrats for 2024 than Donald Trump spending the next 4 years.
2022.
Or 2022.
It could save the House for the Democrats. Donald Trump still being a part of the public lexicon in a way that, in a greater way than they anticipated, and then the Democrats could potentially get a do-over for the last 4 years and actually tie the Republicans to Donald Trump.
Yes, they could try and do it this time. We're going to be talking about all in the coming days. We've touched on this over the past week. The borrowing that the Trump administration is doing. They changed the rules on civil service back in October. And they have been shoving in a lot of political appointees into civil service jobs. We will talk about that. Report out of the Hill over the weekend was that Democrats are now assembling lists to find out who these people are and where they're located in the context of the government. Because
and hopefully isolate them,
and so that the Biden administration, when they come in, look, this is the thing that I think it's hard for people to fully appreciate. This is a massive, massive undertaking. Our government is huge, and you're talking about tens of thousands of people. And you don't know when you're the president, or even when you're a cabinet secretary, even when you're the sub-cabinet secretary, you're looking to execute policy. And you send it down to the agencies, the wrong person in the right position can inhibit these things from happening. And
that's the design of this undertaking by the Trump administration,
without a doubt.
And it's super unprecedented too, right? Even with past Republican administrations who were arguably worse than the Trump administration, right? They weren't deliberately hiding political appointees in these specifically service positions. I don't see it. I see it as way more explicit than anything that Bush did before.
Well, I mean, they changed the rules on civil service. I mean, there was certainly attempts in the past to do it with the Bush administration. But remember, this administration came in. Steve Bannon got in front of CPAC 2 months after the election, or I should say the inauguration, I think it was, maybe a month, and said, our agenda is to deconstruct the administrative state. And they have gone a long way into doing it. And they are continuing with that project. We're also going to see a whole host of executive orders that supposedly are gearing up in places like immigration. We just saw they changed the federal rules on how you can execute people for federal executions. We're going to see more of this. We will track it and we will get to it over the coming days. But let's catch you up on the latest appointments from the Joe Biden administration. They have announced that now there are two basic entities that provide broad economic advice to the president. One is the Council of Economic Advisors. This is outside the White House.
Right.
This is traditionally, it was, and by traditionally, I mean maybe 10, 20 years ago, this was this was a group of economic economists coming from different disciplines. I study wages. I study industrial policy, et cetera, that come together. They also would range in terms of ideological. Not a huge range. It's America, but some range. And the president would get advice from them. Now, since that time, the National Economic Council has been developed and has become, in many ways, a little bit of a gatekeeper, right? So this position, the National Economic Council, was headed by like Larry Summers. And so when they were getting all sorts of advice on how big to go on the stimulus following the financial crisis in 2008, Larry Summers sort of functioned like a funnel.
Right.
And narrowed the potential options that were given to the president. Now, this is a big deal with a guy like Biden, because Joe Biden's not exactly the man with the plan.
He's not exactly ideological in many ways, which can be a good thing and can be a terrible thing. It really does depend on who is in his circle, which is why these are so key.
Yes, I think he is he is always, according to what I have read, has always tried to stick his flag in the center of the Democratic thought, essentially, and where the conventional wisdom has laid. And so the value of opening that, what they call the Overton window, right, which is the sort of like on one side of the ledger, is really important, because as the left margins go further left, the center also drifts left,
and ostensibly Biden.
So first, the good news. On the Council of Economic Advisors, people who follow this stuff, and I'm thinking, Mike Consul is one of those people. He's a fellow at the Roosevelt Institute. He was involved in Occupy. He says all the people who understand how important executing the recovery and getting to full employment will be, they will have a strong antibodies against cynical debt hysteria and conservative boilerplate. So he is talking about Cecilia Rouse, who's going to chair the Council of Economic Advisors. He's talking about Heather Bushy, who is an economist who will sit on that. He's talking about Jared Bernstein, who will also sit on the Council of Economic Advisors. Would have been better if some of these people were inside the White House, but it's unclear. Jared Bernstein has been advising Joe Biden since the Obama era. He was brought on as his top economic advisor, one of them. And Bernstein worked quite a bit on developing some of the stimulus following the 2008 crisis. He wanted more money, but again, it was shut down because they were worried. The political people were worried that somehow we can sell 800 billion, but not 1 trillion, as if, these numbers are magic in some way. But it's possible he'll have more, access to the president than someone typically on the Council for Economic Advisors. He studies labor relations. Bushi studies, I think it's wages. And Rouse did some real strong work on student debt.
Yeah.
So these are good people who are not going to defer to, and let me be clear too. The whole name of the game is to make sure that we don't have people who are going to be seduced by the calls for austerity.
Which there will be. I mean,
of course.
Burying the lead here is that Brian Deese might be.
Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
But before we get there, we already seeing reports now of Republican senators all of a sudden rediscovering the deficit.
Yeah.
Now, modern economic thought says that when interest rates are low, where the deficit is not inhibiting in any way, or the debt for that matter, inhibiting in any way growth, you need not worry about it. And in fact, modern monetary theory suggests that we can just print money. Deficits are not bad.
Right.
Deficits and debt held by the government is not bad, because that means on the other side of the ledger, there's more money in the private sector at a time when you need it.
Right.
And there's fears of inflation, but these fears of inflation, ever since we got off the gold standard, are really something that the Fed can control quite easily, and you can control with tax policy.
And the good news about Biden was that Yellen, who was in the past kind of sympathetic to the arguments that you're outlining here, has updated her view to be a bit more progressive in this instance. But then you have Biden also putting BlackRock executives and other people.
We're going to get to Deese in a second, because
but even more than that, it's the Adeyemo guy, who's going to be right under Yellen and is more pro austerity.
That's right. And so all of this is going to be about how can you push off the push, or how can you fight off the push for austerity with an administration that is like, it's like a big sail, essentially. And the question is, which wind is going to be caught in that sail as to where we're going to go with this. And in one other pick before we get to Deese, Neera Tanden, who folks might know from Twitter.
I don't, because she blocked me.
She is been chosen to run the Office of Management and Budget. Now, in the past, Neera Tanden, and you can see this video online, has, particularly during the Obama administration, she was pushing this line of having to look at basically the grand bargain, which was, we're going to cut Social Security, we're going to cut Medicare, we're going to cut Medicaid, and we'll get tax increases. Now, I think Neera Tanden, and I have been critical of her in the past, without a doubt, like as recently as, 12 hours ago on Twitter, myself, much to the chagrin. Some of it was like, I just made a sort of a funny observation.
Yeah. Well,
Neera Tanden, let's just get rid of the sort of the petty stuff first. She is one of, and look, this is not an ideological thing, because I have this feeling for a lot of people who I see on Twitter. But on Twitter, she's a little bit unhinged.
And apparently it was reported she might have been abusive towards Faz Shakur and other people in her workplace, and she's aggressively combative with the left, specifically the Bernie Sanders wing. I mean, to me, what bothers me about this pick is not that ideologically Tanden is some deficit hawk who's gonna, push for austerity or whatever and budget like a Republican. I mean, she's better than some of the worst people that were apparently being considered for this position, ideologically, I guess. But it shows to me that Biden is either trying to send a message to the left with this, because there's no one more vocally aggressive and combative with the left than Tanden, or he's that oblivious, which I kind of tend to think it's the latter, because they're so steeped in DC groupthink and so dismissive of the Bernie wing of the party that they're not paying attention to how Tanden has become this symbol for anti-leftism on the internet. But why reward her? I mean,
well, I'll tell you, this is my sense of that. First off, so I tweeted out something just making a joke about how
you're not allowed to do that.
She had tweeted more than Donald Trump. And the response was quite virulent. I'm more concerned about her past talking about cutting Social Security and Medicare. But with that said, I think certainly OMB has generally been where the worst of the worst, sort of like CFO-ish type of person would be in there and inhibit the ambitions of the White House. I don't think she'll do that. I think she's a soldier. And I think that she is going to help with the Biden agenda. If we can get the Biden agenda to be anti-austerity, and I don't think that OMB is going to be a problem. I think that your assessment of like, they knew who she was. Mm-hmm. And I think this was, I would much rather have someone who performatively has been highly dismissive of the left, disrespectful to people, attacking, than someone who's going to go in who nobody's heard of before. They don't have a Twitter account, but they're going to go in there and they're going to push pro-austerity policies.
Sure. I mean, but she didn't want the Clinton campaign to push for $15 minimum wage.
Without a doubt.
She was in favor of the exact cuts that you're talking about. I mean, she was central to the racist attack on Obama from the Clinton campaign in 2008. She has a terrible record. So I don't know how much worse you can get, to be honest.
Well, no, but there are worse.
You can get worse.
You can get worse. You can definitely get worse. If you look at the people who have been in that position in the past, you can certainly get worse. And in fact, there is, but again, like, let's make a distinction between someone is an a-hole on Twitter, which I certainly have at times been, but, and what they're going to do in the job. And on some level, if the sell was like, we're going to stick it to the left by putting someone that people on Twitter don't like, as opposed to we're going to stick it to the left because we're going to put in Bruce Reed, who was one of the founding members of the DLC, who has an ideological, I just don't think that Neera Tanden has that much of an ideology that is that strong, as opposed to a Bruce Reed who has an ideological, like, sort of deep-seated love affair with austerity.
Yes. And
a deep-seated desire to cut Social Security and Medicare. And that is great. And here's the reality is, I don't know if Neera Tanden is going to, because she's so closely associated with the sort of the same type of activity, not so much her attack on the lefts, but like her being a Twitter warrior, is going to pass Senate confirmation, in which case we could end up with a Bruce Reed.
Again, though, it's she's also representative of this think tank corruption in DC. I mean, I understand your point, and I agree with it, that Reed would have been a worse pick. But she's been at the center of the Democratic swamp for decades at this point. And so I don't like what that reinforces as well. Yes. And it makes her prime exactly for what you're saying.
This is
for a tough confirmation hearing if Biden even tries to go that route.
Well, this is the milieu, as it were, of Democrats that we've got. I mean, established Democrats who have largely been in the system, as it were, whether they were hiding out at West X, that the a consultant firm essentially waiting for a potential Biden administration, or they were at CAP, which was, at one point considered the Clinton administration in exile. This is the milieu. And so on a narrowly tailored way, it could be worse, and it still could be worse. I don't know who the second choice is if she doesn't get confirmed. But let's move on to the sort of I think, clearly even worse.
Yeah.
Which is this guy, Deese, Brian Deese. He was a senior Obama administration official. This whole administration is like Obama
retreads.
Yes.
And rewards for past Obama service, which is interesting because I would have imagined that Biden would have wanted to put his own stamp on things, especially if there was conflict with some of the more Chicago type, the people Obama brought in. But
I don't think that Joe Biden has a stamp.
Right, but that's the point. Like, he doesn't have an orbit in the way that Obama developed it, and then Clinton obviously had for decades and decades.
Obama didn't have an orbit either
until
he adopted essentially all of the Reubenites. He adopted Clinton's orbit. And so what we're doing is we're getting sort of like second generation, third generation Clintonites.
Hillary Clinton's finally president.
Exactly. Well, no, we're not quite there.
No, I'm joking.
But for instance, and David Dayen makes this point, and I got to say, the American Prospect has been doing an amazing job on this. If you want to know who's going to get picked next week for a position, you can read it today in the American Prospect.
I've subscribed to their newsletter.
Not literally, but I'm saying, but he says, look, he could have chosen, talking about Biden, he could have chosen deficit hawk Bruce Reed to run the Office of Management and Budget. Instead, he chose Neera Tanden, notorious for tweeting entirely too much, but not in the same league as Reed on austerity.
However, Deese.
He could have chosen Lisa Cook to chair the Council of Economic Advisors. Instead, he went with the slightly more center-left Cecilia Rouse. Bernstein and Bushi, like we say, will round out the CEA, and that's, in general, a good group. And then he says he could have chosen Tim Geithner ally Lael Brainerd for Treasury Secretary. Instead, went with Janet Yellen, an economist who has made tight labor markets her life's work. So she's much more inclined.
I'm good with the Yellen pick for Biden.
More concerning, he writes, is the presence of the new vampire squid BlackRock. Key policy-making roles. Brian Deese, the managing director at BlackRock with several roles in the Obama White House, is on track and has been named the director of National Economic Council. And your buddy Adelwell Adeyemo, who served as BlackRock advisor, CEO of Larry Fink's interim chief of staff in between Obama economic team jobs, and president of the Obama Foundation, will become deputy Treasury Secretary.
Which seems to be an attempt to check Yellen from the right.
On some level, that is to sort of make sure that, that she doesn't get too into the idea of job creation or, because this dynamic, and people should understand this. The Fed has, or I should say, Treasury works with the Fed and does a lot of banking regulation. But when she was at the Fed, when the Fed has always had a dual mandate. That dual mandate has been to keep inflation in check and to increase or decrease unemployment as much as possible. And for a long time, the conventional wisdom was you cannot get less than 4 or 5% unemployment. Like, naturally, the economy cannot, can't function.
Right.
But in fact, it turns out, yes, you can. You can get significantly more or less unemployment. You can go down to 3 and nothing happens. And for too long, the Fed was focused on maintaining inflation. Even they would set inflation rate like we can't go over 2%, and if we do, we've got to tighten money. And then they get to like 1.5, and they go, well, we should just do it in case we get to 2, right. And they would tighten money, and they would forget about the duality of that mandate, which was to help employment. Well, Yellen sort of reversed. She became a little bit of like an inflation dove and more of an unemployment hawk. and not dramatic, but enough that it was pretty significant. And hopefully at the Treasury, she will continue with policies that promote unemployment, or I should say the diminishment of unemployment.
That don't promote unemployment.
But getting back to Deese, there are some people who say, well, the guys, I've seen, sort of conflicting suggestions. You had Bill McKibben had a thread on Brian Deese, who he knows personally. Apparently he married him, but he basically stayed away from him when he was in positions of authority and agitated from the outside. He seems to think that Deese's heart is in the right place. But for me personally, I don't take the word of people who know people personally.
Right. I mean, I'm sure he's a lovely guy who worked at BlackRock and was supportive of Arctic drilling and fracking on public lands. And I mean, BlackRock is this behemoth that has, I saw in the prospect, a 5% stake in over 97% of S&P 500 companies. And now there are two at minimum, right? Now I might be undercounting, BlackRock executives heavily involved in the Biden administration, both under Yellen and now as the top economic advisor to Biden in Deese. And they are also involved in Amazon rainforest deforestation, I believe, and all of the issues there with climate change. So, you can't welcome, I think, executives and members of this group that are, I think it has the highest level of investment in fossil fuel production in the world, BlackRock. And then also be promoting this decently forward-thinking climate agenda. It seems odd to reward these kinds of people and bring them in, especially if you're going to get some backlash. But they're more concerned about the backlash from the right, and they don't care about BlackRock, right? Than they are from the progressive left. And so they're fine with it. And I just don't like that it seems like they're setting it up so there's a check on somebody who might go in a slightly left direction.
Well, I mean, that is the nature of this. And I think to a certain extent, it's not just a question of I think the attitude is different from what you're talking about. First of all, I don't think it's like a question of rewarding. I think for them, it's like, look, we need people who've been here for a long time. And of course, they're going to go to BlackRock. And the BlackRock investing in being one of the greatest investors in fossil fuel industry. I mean, understand, when you invest in a fossil fuel industry, what you're investing in is the viability of them taking fossil fuels out of the ground 10, 15, 20 years from now. And so a departure of investment in that would signify that these companies need to change and reorient towards sustainable energy. And so that's the power of a BlackRock in particular. In 2008, he was an advisor to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. He endorsed deficit reduction and fiscal discipline. He said at his confirmation hearing for deputy director of the Office of Management and Budget in 2013 that his top priority would be working on a comprehensive deficit reduction agreement. That was when Obama had his turn to austerity, which would include entitlement reform. That's Medicare, Social Security, maybe Medicaid. He gave speeches, paid speeches, on, quote, how the budget process can actually be used to reform entitlements and tax code. He was also a key supporter of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which in many respects also hurt Clinton in her attempt to win in 2016. The other things, he was also the primary mover of the Jobs Act under the Obama administration, which is short for Jumpstart Our Business I can't remember what the last one is, but Jumpstart Our Business Enterprise. It rolled back basically corporate oversight. It allowed for more investment that is not under the auspices of the SEC. It led to mini IPOs, which was rife with fraud. I think at one point they had to stop allowing for those. And he also was the top advisors who said, choose Merrick Garland. Mm-hmm. Because if you choose Merrick Garland, the Republicans will be really ashamed for having rejected a moderate. That kind of thinking, which is, that is strictly a political question, right?
It's ideologically wrong, and it's also bad politics.
Bad politics.
Right.
Very bad politics.
And so is this austerity stuff, right? Especially in this moment. So Biden needs to be thinking long term. I don't know if that's in his wheelhouse here, but Democrats should not be preemptively talking about austerity measures and balancing budgets right now. The amount of economic investment needed by the federal government into the economy should be paramount and should not be held back at all, purely if you want to win elections, purely if you want to lay the groundwork for 2022 and 2024, which Democrats seem incapable of doing.
But you can also make this argument. I agree with you. But you can also make this argument on just sheer economics. The fact of the matter is the economy needs stimulus. And it does not matter. There is no evidence that our debt or our deficit is in any way inhibiting growth or inhibiting anything that we care about on an economic level. It is not in any way promoting inflation. And so it makes good economic sense as well. It's just that, look, there are differing priorities. And the fear of inflation for bankers and for people who loan money is quite high because as inflation rises, the value of their loans diminishes. And so they will block that at any cost. Also, we also know Alan Greenspan at one point said it when he was chairman of the Fed. Part of his job is to create insecurity amongst workers because insecurity amongst workers depresses wages. It diminishes the ability of workers to change jobs. That's a great
sociopathic thing to say.
That's a great agenda for a very, very narrow few sociopathic people.
Right.
But for the rest of us who want the ability to live not just a comfortable existence, but one where there is not this constant sense of economic insecurity and where we don't rely on things like, our job for healthcare. And so that's where we're at in terms of Biden's picks. He also has an all-female comms team, which is commendable. Fine. I think the Trump administration did too. I think at one point, although it was
I'll say this as a woman, I don't care, but
it would be nice. There was broader, but there seems to be doing a decent job of diversity. I would like to see, obviously. In my administration, people would be a little bit more to the left. There wouldn't be any talk of austerity. There wouldn't be talk of any austerity 2 years down the road,
right?
Or anything like that. And hopefully there won't be here. But lastly, let's just take one moment. Well, let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, we will talk about what's going on in Georgia, because much of what we're talking about still is contingent upon what happens in Georgia. The ability for Joe Biden to get his nominees okayed by a Senate is going to largely rely on the outcome of Georgia. Now, there's some thinking that on the health and maybe the economic ends, or maybe the national security and the health ends, it's going to move quickly. But some of these economic positions, Republicans are going to want austerity hawks and deficit hawks, because that's the Democrats doing their work for them.
I know. That's their ideology.
Exactly. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back in just a moment. This is pretty fascinating. There's a report out today that Donald Trump Jr. has started a new PAC. Now, ostensibly to get voters out in Georgia, correct?
Ostensibly, but it's all about drumming up things about voter fraud for Trump. So I don't know how that does that, right?
I mean, whenever I hear the words Trump and new and PAC, I just hear, oh, they've figured out another grift.
Sure.
Right? I mean, the Trump people are already being sued. There's not the Trump per se, but
they're sending out emails to their supporters saying, please donate to our legal fund. Actually, in fine print at the bottom, it's to pay off our debts.
Right. A guy named Fred Eshelman sued the Houston-based True the Vote, Inc., which promised to investigate, litigate, and expose suspected illegal balloting ad fraud in the 2020 general election. This is according to Bloomberg. Eshelman is the founder of Eshelman Ventures, LLC. That sounds like a hedge fund to me. He said he regularly and repeatedly asked for updates on the initiative, but was met with vague responses, platitudes, and empty promises. True the Vote said its efforts including filing lawsuits in several swing states, collecting whistleblower complaints, and increasing GOP legislative support in key states and conducting, quote, sophisticated data modeling and statistical analysis to identify potential illegal and fraudulent balloting. I've done some statistical modeling. And I think that if you give money to these people, any of these people talking about this, you're going to get ripped off. But that's just my model.
Your model shows that?
My model shows that.
Your algorithm.
This is the interesting turn of events that's taking place in Georgia. Play this clip. This is clip number 5. This is Ronna McDaniel. She is the chairwoman of the Republican National Committee.
And niece of Mitt Romney?
Yep.
No idea. I was coming to Georgia for that. Yeah.
Switching the votes, and we go there in crazy numbers, and they should have won, but then there's still.
Yeah, we have to. We didn't see that in the audit, so we've got to just that evidence I haven't seen. So we'll wait and see on that.
How are we going to get money and work when it's already decided?
It's not decided. This is the key. It's not decided. First of all, David Perdue still has 100,000 vote lead over John Ossoff right now with the certification. So if you lose your faith and you don't vote and people walk away, that will decide it.
So you see what's going on there.
Yeah, it's a real dynamic that I don't know if it'll affect anything, but something to keep your eye on.
They have messaged very effectively to their people that the vote is rigged. It doesn't matter. It was stolen from Donald Trump. And you've got supporters who are, I mean, I don't know. Do you know anybody who's ever gone to like a Tom Perez talk?
No.
Like, I mean, I don't know anybody who's going to go out and hear the chairperson of a party speak. And if I did, I would imagine they're in the know.
Right. Well, they're as passionate as it gets, right?
Exactly.
It's also when you look at people who aren't voters, like data on non-voters in the United States, it's usually lower income people who feel neither party is representing them and it's not going to make a difference. And there's some of that dynamic here, right? If they don't vote, they think nothing's going to change. So,
well, I mean, you have people saying to her, like, why would we spend money and go vote when it's already decided?
Right.
It's already rigged. And we are now, I mean, they got time.
How's she going to thread that needle? She could
35 days.
Yeah.
35 days out from the election, having to convince people that, like, not only is it important, this is an important election, but like, no, you can vote. It will be registered.
This is the flip side to what we had to say post 2016 about, rigged versus the home field advantage of the establishment.
Yes.
But the thing that is rigged for the Republicans is more people typically would vote Democrat, all things being equal and voting being, easy. So that's the thing. Like, what if we're just going to count all the votes equal, what's the point of voting? Because we're outnumbered by them, I think, is the realization some of them are having.
Yep. Well, we will talk more about this in the coming days. We will see you tomorrow. And for people who are sticking around, of course, we're going to head into the fun half of the program. We just said goodbye to the people from
Peacock. Right here on my little,
on your mug. There you go. All right, we're going to take a quick break and head into the fun half of the program, wherein I am going to, this should be interesting because I am actually going to have an agreement with someone who I have spent years very fairly critiquing.
Who?
Well, you're going to have to tune in the fun half.
Wow.
All right. We'll be back in. Oh, I should just say, first off, one, don't forget, you can support this program by becoming a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. And two, check out Nomi's show. You can find the Nomi Key show at on YouTube. At youtube.com/the Nomi Key show.
And just as we plug the Antifada, Jamie seems to be joining us.
And Jamie can tell you what's happening on the Antifada.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
How was Thanksgiving, Jamie?
Oh, it was fine. I had to do a full quarantine. I did it for like 12 days, and then I got the PCR test, which is 98% accurate, so I could go see my grandma and my mom and not kill my grandma. They still treated me like I had COVID when I was there, which is fine.
But they treated you like that even before COVID.
Yeah, fair enough.
What's happening on the Antifada?
Oh, well, we had a bit of a programming change. So the interview we were going to run last week, we're actually going to run this week. So last week on the Antifada, we put out a lot of stuff over the break. We did an episode with the podcast Real Abstractions, where they talk all about, it's complicated. This is a complicated one, folks. Marxism without Marx, Marxology. I don't know. It's interesting. Check it out. Friday, we put out an episode of Talkin' Tina, which is Andy's side project about Latin American politics. And he gets an update on the situation in Brazil and what's going on there. And then this week, on Wednesday, we've got an interview with Aaron Benenov, author of Automation and the Future of Work, about the jobless future, the actual causes behind that. Spoiler alert, not automation, and what we can do to try to rearrange the world in a way that makes more sense. So patreon.com/the Antifada. You'll find all that and more.
And Matt, you had a huge announcement this week.
Yes, and I can actually reveal the announcement for the MR audience. David Griscom and I launched a new show called Left Reckoning. It's on YouTube and Twitch, and we'll release the audio for our patrons. But it's very exciting, and we will actually be streaming on the YouTube page the first inaugural think tank with David and I tonight at 7 p.m. So go subscribe to our YouTube channel, folks. We've already got over 1,000 subs, and we haven't even posted a thing yet. So The response has been very nice. So thanks, everybody, for that.
Logo, dude.
The logo?
Talking about that logo.
My friend Grant, really, you have to go see the logo online. At Left Reckoning on Twitter, but my friend Grant from up in I don't know if I have it super accessible right now, but I'll put it up later. Maybe when I plug it tomorrow, I'll put it up. What?
You're not by a computer?
Well, I am, but I also have to get ready for the switch to the fun half here. So
all right. Well, suit yourself, buddy. Good job.
You really want to see that logo, Sam? Jeez.
Well, I get some questions about that logo.
I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, interesting.
It just this incentivizes people to just go to their Twitter account.
Folks, see you in the fun half.
And for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you can imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost has what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ Dannerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder. I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are
psych. Fuck them. Almost has what? Almost says what?
Hell of a lot of back. 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 Hell of a lot of back.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black Africans. The alpha males are back. And the Africans are black.
See Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on! Fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday! Happy birthday to me, Jew boy!
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on! Come on! Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. It is the fun half, ladies and gentlemen. Rain's going to start again in 20 minutes. I'm going to be walking home in the rain.
It is nasty in New York.
Very nasty in New York.
I kind of like falling asleep when it's raining, I gotta say.
Oh yeah, from a work from home standpoint, it's the greatest because it's usually boring. At least you got something on the window panes now.
Hey, we're having a problem with the videos are sounding a little bit low. The audio. Have you heard that? Have you heard that feedback from people?
I have not heard that, but we'll pump up the sound on the.
Let's
videos.
do that. We are days away, ladies and gentlemen, and by days I probably mean weeks away from having, and by weeks I may mean months, from having a new video system. I think people don't realize that we've been producing the show. It's been completely makeshift. Like, this is the thing that people don't understand about this show versus other shows in our universe. I don't know if there are other shows that do a show like this live. I mean, I guess there are. I mean, there's a lot of people who do live streams now.
Right.
But with so many different components and set up, like, the younger people now, they're more proficient with stuff like, on Twitch, and they're using OBS and they're dragging things in. But, I'm old. I don't know how to do that. So we have other people doing it. And when we're all in the studio, it works seamlessly because we do it. But here...
Speaking of Sam being old, by the way, it was his birthday this weekend.
It was, in fact, my birthday. That's why I'm coming off as a little bit old. That was my roundabout way to try and drop that in.
Right.
Because
well,
I didn't,
let's wish him a happy birthday.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
I think my robot vacuum is wishing you a happy birthday. It just woke up as soon as you said that.
Well, that's one of the things that you pick up as you get older. You have the ability to talk to inanimate, to technology, Anything
Happy birthday, Sam.
that doesn't have any feelings, you can talk to.
Oh, technology. I thought she said her cat.
No, she's talking to Roomba.
Is that the Roomba?
All right, well, look.
No, my cats don't give a shit about anyone.
But you know, a lot of like other shows, they also they pre-record. And they cut it together, so it's a little bit smoother. So you know, we're trying to get a technology for, you know, COVID-y that's also going to be useful after COVID. So, but with all that said, let's move on to something else. I wanted to talk about this. So I saw a video, and I've been like debating, like, should I even like give him credit for it? Because there's a lot of things about this guy that I don't care for.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the spirit in which it was presented, and because actually, you know, I really don't care at the end of the day about, you know, whether someone's a jerk or not a jerk. I have a political agenda, and it was a pretty good idea. And so Jimmy Dore had a suggestion that we can all participate in. And I have not been able to come up with a reason why we shouldn't participate in this. People shouldn't either, because I think it's a pretty good one. I think there is some a downside and a danger to it. Sometimes you can overplay your hand on some level, but I'll talk about that in a moment. But broadly speaking, and it is this: as you know, Nancy Pelosi has been basically nominated to be the Speaker of the House. The Democratic caucus more or less said, we're down with that. Then what happens is it goes to a full vote in the House. Democrats have a 15-seat majority, I think, as of now. I don't know if there's any races that are extant. But so there's a 15-seat, or I should say a 14-seat, I think, majority.
Might be less, but I'm not sure.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it's about 14 seats.
Okay.
Because, you know, these things are fluid. I think there's still one or two extant. But nevertheless, the point being that what can progressives get from Pelosi in exchange for their votes? There's also, you know, there could be a couple of moderates who are not voting for Pelosi, right? I think, was it from Michigan? I can't remember her name now, but
the CIA woman.
Right, exactly.
Slotkin.
Slotkin. She claimed that she wasn't going to support Pelosi, but who knows? Maybe she meant for the leader as opposed to for Speaker of the House. But the idea is to get the some progressives, all you need is about 15, to say, we want a vote on Medicare for all in the House. Now, even if the Medicare for all was to pass in the House, it doesn't mean anything in terms of it actually getting into effect. Now, but there is value in getting the caucus on the record, both from, like, if the Democratic caucus votes for it, it sets a marker for when they control both houses.
And there have been votes in the past, right? You know, on Medicare for all in the House, and you've gotten people on the record. Like, prime example for me when I was debating these Tulsi Gabbard supporters was that she wasn't voting for Medicare for all, and then she signed on to it later on. But I agree. I mean, I think that's a good way to go about things.
And we could push House members to leverage their vote. Now, my only caveat about this is that, I don't know how well it's going to do in a vote. I think it's going to get the majority of Democrats, I would imagine, if it was to take the vote taken. But it's also like, is that the best ask? Mm-hmm. Is it better ask? We want more progressives on this committee, or we want more progressives on that committee. But for the time being, and I need to read more into it, but I think the idea is that it is worth right now. I think this is one of those few places like where Twitter actually means something. Tweeting at some of the top progressives, people who were supported by the Justice Democrats, let's say, who are in the House, a lot of the squad, maybe Pramila Jayapal, who's the head of the Progressive Caucus.
Jamal Bowman, Mondaire Jones.
Mondaire Jones was not a Just Democrat, but he's new, sort of squad adjacent.
Right.
And more, some of the top leaders in the Progressive Caucus, because AOC, when she came on, she said, like, we need to have standards for the Progressive Caucus.
There are none. There are like 100 of them, and they're
it's $4,000.
Yeah,
you just need to pay $4,000 dues, and then you can buy that logo. Well, maybe it's time to sort of say, like, here's the membership dues, and that is demand a vote on Medicare for all and vote for Medicare for all. And the $4,000. And so right now, at the very least, I'm going to read in more. Maybe there's other asks that are better, that are more material in some respects, but there should be a concerted effort by people on the left to push these progressives to ask for something in return, something that we can see. And it may be right now, because this vote's not going to happen for another month. The thing to do is spend the next week saying, we want something in return for your vote to support Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. And I don't know, maybe it's a vote for Medicare for all on the floor. Maybe there's something that's a better ask. I imagine each individual, congressperson might have their own ask. But the more of a stink that we make, the easier it is for the progressives to leverage it, because they can simply say, like, look, I've got my own domestic pressures. And so I think it's a good idea to do this. So, tweet at the Justice Democrats, not the organization, although the organization, but at those Democrats who won with that support, with, the squad and squad adjacent. Choose some folks from the Progressive Caucus and tweet at them. Tell them, get something for your vote.
Yeah. And even if a vote on Medicare for all is not happening, which I don't believe it is, it's still good for them to ask for it and for everybody to see them get denied. Right. Yeah. Just to show just how great a distance there is between the brand of the Democratic Party leadership, which is generally somewhat progressive, and the reality, which is hard-nosed austerity.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's hard-nosed austerity. I mean, I think the idea is, like, first off, I think most progressives know that Nancy Pelosi is against Medicare for all. I mean, she has said as much. I don't know if it's for a reversal of PAYGO rules or what, although I think that's largely irrelevant unless they win the Senate. But
well, most people are not up on, Nancy Pelosi's individual policy positions, I don't think. Most people just think, oh, yes, generally this party represents my interests, and that's where it stops. And I think to have a public fight over something like this would do a lot of good in terms of people's consciousness.
Yeah, I think I definitely think that that pushing over the idea of Medicare for all, just a vote, and then people can vote against it if they want, right? I mean, It's just like it is time to sort of say, like, this deserves a vote and bring it up to the vote. So tweet at those folks. We'll see what happens. Now we'll go back to regularly scheduled programming and, make fun of Jimmy Dore.
Sure.
So, but what else we got here? You'll really appreciate this. Mm-hmm. Kelly Loeffler, her husband is the chairman of, what is it? Is it the New York Stock Exchange?
Yes, it's the stock exchange. How do they live in Georgia? They probably don't.
Well, they probably commute back and forth. He goes in,
Private
for
jet.
a couple of days, private jet. I mean, this is the way you live.
Yeah.
And multimillionaire. She made millions, I think, just on COVID alone.
Yeah, all that insider trading did her well.
Or at least that's what you're led to believe, guys. But do you realize that Loeffler also knows what it feels like living paycheck to paycheck? Now, of course, in her instance, the paycheck's much larger. And by living, she just means actually living.
Yeah, she means that sometimes she has to wait for her paycheck so she can buy her third yacht.
Yeah, and probably not. But here she is making that argument.
It's so important to have Senator Loeffler in the Senate, especially right now. What we need more than ever is a business mind. We need someone who understands how to not only write paychecks and sign paychecks, but what it feels like waiting on that paycheck.
Kelly Loeffler, a fearless advocate for school choice, growing opportunities for minority businesses, and a comprehensive health care plan for all Georgians.
This is the fight for the soul of the country.
I'm Kelly Loeffler. I approve this message.
I mean,
cool of them to just pick a black woman to say that and then use a black man's voice so brazenly in that ad as an attempt to pander.
I mean, of course, they're attempting to talk to the African American community. The idea that she knows, what it is to wait on a paycheck. Maybe that's truthful in the sense that she knows what it is to make people wait on a paycheck that she would issue. But what's amazing to me about that is that, and this is, again, this goes to my constant refrain about making Republicans own Donald Trump, making them own Republican policies. If you watch that ad, you would have no idea what party she was in. You would have no idea what the ideology of that party is. What the brazen ideology of it is. You'd have no idea of any of it. And Democrats obviously can't make Republicans change their ads, but they should make that the reaction of anybody sitting at home should be like, wait, what?
Yeah. I mean, and then of course the gratuitous usage of school choice. That was the only discernible policy that was discussed there because Frank Luntz focused group tested that particular phrase, and it sounds good, even though it's completely gutting public schools, and everything else is just vapid nonsense about businesses and blah, blah, blah. Well, and it's just completely vacuous.
School choice not often, but has some appeal in the African-American communities because you have some school districts that have been really left behind. And so the opportunity for Black parents to send their kids to, let's say, a charter school is sometimes, sadly, the one that they defer to. There isn't
because they know no help is coming for their normal schools.
They got to look out for themselves. And so that's what that whole phenomenon preys upon is the desire for people to better their kids' lives, and they're going to make the choice that's personally better for them, and the system preys on that. And,
they're also not necessarily aware that the data shows that these schools are not necessarily better.
Right.
I mean, I think I interviewed and Brendan, maybe you can remind me, a charter school supporter who had written a book about following Success Academy for a year. And at the end of the whole thing, he essentially conceded that, well, it's not so much what they're doing in these schools. It's that it is attracting they're not cherry picking students, they're cherry picking parents.
Right.
And so now it's obviously much harder if you are living in poverty, if you do not have the advantages of wealth, to be, frankly, a good parent who is that engaged in schoolwork. I mean, it's just harder. You don't have as much time. You don't have as much resources. You don't have the ability to, maybe to get childcare that can also help you with these things. But it is, so you're basically like choosing the superstar parents in these communities, and they're the ones, and you're putting them all together
and pretending that's your results.
Exactly.
Like it's causation, it's a correlation, not causation.
Indeed.
And I should say the outcomes in charter schools are not necessarily better. And I read a disturbing article about how racial disparities in the punishment of children was much, much worse in charter schools than in traditional public schools.
Without a doubt. And they're not. I mean, on balance, they work out more or less the same. There are some schools that excel, and there's some schools that don't. That also happens within the context of public schools. But there is no data that shows that charter schools, broadly speaking, are any better than public schools. But we do know that they cherry pick the parents. They don't. They're not obligated many times to educate a wide range of students, and so. They also drain resources from the public schools. So.
Yeah. Well, but they also help to break the power of teachers' unions, which, saves the state some money.
Can I just dwell on Kelly Loeffler and she lives at a place called Tuxedo Park in Atlanta in a $10 million mansion called Descante. And this is what Tuxedo Park looks like. So I just think we really need to raise taxes, lots of different forms of taxes. Look at, it's called Tuxedo Park. I don't.
McMansion hell.
$1 million get you in Tuxedo Park these days? Because it's not anything like what it used to be.
No, definitely.
10 million used to be able to get you. You get a 25,000 square foot house. Now with 10 million, all you can get is like a 14,000 square fout house.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go down to like Monocle Bay.
You actually have to see your family like once a week in a 14,000 square foot house.
You might not even need an intercom to talk to them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, if I run into my family, I see the kids more than a week, we got to bump into them or something in the house. The house is too small as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly.
That's too small. All right. What should we touch on here? Let's go to some IMs. Damien, I've missed you all. The holiday was horrible. Never leave again. Have you heard about the judge with no law degree sending people in Coffeyville, Kansas to debtor's prison over medical bills? Apparently the judge has taken order from a debt collector and it actually gets worse from there.
They're bringing it back.
Look it up.
Sam's Clean Tushy. Oh, thank you. Every time I hear the DJ Anarchy Fun Half song, I'm reminded how Michael was able to thread the needle of almost offensive comedy constantly, but never crossing the line. He was great indeed. A Square, Sam, a lot of desperation out there economically and politically. It's tough to say somewhat hopeful and define strategies for the future. Thanks for trying to do that. Heard Nomiki's shows last week, and with you, it's righteous anger and frustration, but hope she, like all of us, can refocus the anger and unprocessed grief. Things are looking super bleak, folks. You've got 12 million people going off of unemployment on December 26th. You've got about that same amount who are subject possibly to eviction. Evictions are already happening at this point. There's significant data that shows that COVID spikes are a function, I should put it this way, that evictions are causing COVID spikes, which is fairly obvious when you think about it, right? I mean, you kick somebody out of their house and they have nowhere to go. And who knows how long it takes them to find a place before, as they travel around. On top of which, we're showing a huge increase at food banks. It's a story out of Boston where they are running they have double the clientele in their food banks right now. And 25% of businesses in New York State and New Jersey, I think it's a little bit higher in New Jersey actually, have closed over the course of the coronavirus.
And it's just getting worse.
And it's just going to get worse.
And I mean, in some ways, I do sympathize with some of these Democratic governors because there's no federal help coming in any in the foreseeable future, and lockdowns will just continue to harm people economically. But at the same time, We saw 4 million coronavirus cases in November, and that was double what we saw in October. So what do you do? What do you do when you don't have the funds, when you don't have the federal resources? I mean, it makes no sense to close schools and then keep other businesses open the way Cuomo's doing, but I digress.
Well, they have now, I don't know if you've heard the latest in terms of schooling, but there was a bit of a bait and switch, and some of us are a little bit annoyed by it.
Some.
So originally, now this is important. New York is the biggest school district in the country, or the second biggest, but it's the biggest one that has been open. And of the 1.4, I think it is approximately students in the New York school system, maybe it's closer to 1.2, about 400,000 have been going to school. And they've been doing so on a hybrid model. The rest are all remote. And we were told at the beginning of the school year, you'll have 4 opportunities to opt back in to the hybrid model. And some of us are just like, I'm going to wait and see what happens. One of those deadlines passed the first quarter. And then about 3 weeks ago, they said at the end of the week, you have to decide if you're going to opt in. We're not going to give another option. And I'm like, we're going to opt in just before we get to Thanksgiving and whatnot. Yeah. And in fact, a couple of days after that, they shut the schools. Well, de Blasio, it turns out, the whole plan was to lock people in who are going to be on hybrid and then say, we're going to do 5 days a week, but you cannot get in unless you are already on hybrid. Now,
it's very confusing.
Well, I would send my kid to a 5-day a week, but he wanted to be able to limit that because there are some schools, in fact, in District 15, there's no room to do 5 days a week because you still need to maintain social distancing. It was a way to get to lock it in for parents who didn't want to do all remote. I don't know. It's a messed up situation. The only good thing I can say about it is that District 75, which is a sort of a magnet district for kids who are atypical and need, extra help, aids, whatnot, special needs, they're going to be able to go full time. So that's good. I mean, that should have been the priority, but it's a very difficult situation. But certainly you should have schools open. It's all elementary schools for a lot longer period of time than you have restaurants at 25% capacity. Yeah. But there's no money.
Right.
The state and the city they don't have the money. They cannot deficit spend. And
they can't tax the wealthy either, apparently.
The city, I think, needs approval from the whole state to do so.
Who leads the state? Oh, right.
Right.
But I mean,
we'll see what happens with this latest crew of state lawmakers
and supermajority, et cetera. Yep. That could change things.
Yep.
Dude, it's so bad what's coming. Like, none of my friends in the service industry probably qualify for unemployment. And when the bars shut down again, they're not going to have any money. No. And that is a huge proportion. That is a huge sector of New York City's economy. It's a service economy.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, it's, and this is playing out around the country. I mean, it's going to play around the country, and horrible. But for those of you who are concerned that our president is not spending any time or expending any energy on dealing with this massive crisis that we have with, like Emma said, 2 times the infections that we had in October, we've had in November. We're going to see deaths rise. We are seeing them rise, and I think we're going to be over 2,000 deaths by Christmas. Easy. And we're going to see millions of people losing unemployment benefits and subject to eviction. Here's Donald Trump expressing that he is expending 125% dealing with this. Oh, not with that issue.
And you believe you will be able to prove this in the coming weeks?
Well, I'm going to use 125% of my energy to do it. You need a judge that's willing to hear a case. You need a Supreme Court that's willing to make a real big decision based on everything that it's not like you're going to change my mind. In other words, my mind will not change in 6 months.
We know.
Yeah. In other words, I have decided that I did not lose this election fairly, and I'm not going to do anything except for focus on this. And good luck to everybody else. Although I think he is talking about holding up the defense authorization bill because it includes the provision where we will not have bases named after Confederate leaders anymore. And
big issues, guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
I'm in favor of him not signing that bill.
I am flummoxed as to, and we return to this a lot, Pelosi's calculation of trying to not pass anything basically before the election, or not put the $1.8 trillion stimulus bill into McConnell's hands that Mnuchin and Trump agreed to, because this is not the guy that's going to sign any COVID relief going forward. I don't think that McConnell will agree to anything because of that very fact. And that means that as more and more people die, as infections rise, as we enter into a very dark winter, we are going to have zero relief potentially. And in 11 days or 12 days, the government could shut down entirely.
Yep. Just a disaster.
Focus on the big issues here, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if you've been wanting to get into tenants' rights organizing or eviction defense, I would say now is a good time after looking at the map of everywhere that people are behind on the rent and will be when the money runs out.
Eviction protections run out day after Christmas. 12 million Americans lose unemployment insurance protection. And that is a direct result of McConnell's obstruction and then Nancy Pelosi's subsequent political calculation, I should say.
All right. Speaking of that Maria Bartiromo interview with Donald Trump, this thing was so bat crap crazy. Let's listen to 2 minutes of this. Donald Trump is just, I mean, I am pro this. I am for this. I want him to be talking about how he was robbed in Georgia and how none of his voters, they should abstain from voting.
Keep going.
Because there's no point. Anyways, it's completely rigged. And the FBI is in on it. The DOJ is in on it. The CIA.
Don't forget Hugo Chavez.
NBA. Probably the NFL.
LeBron James. Not the NFL. They got white guys in there. Yeah. The NBA.
NBA,
LeBron,
definitely.
Liberals.
Let's play this.
Where is the DOJ and the FBI in all of this, Mr. President? You have laid out some serious charges here. Shouldn't this be something that the FBI is investigating? Are they?
Missing in action.
Is the DOJ investigating?
Missing in action. Can't tell you where they are. I ask, are they looking at it? Everyone says yes, they're looking at it. Look, where are they with Comey, McCabe, and all these other people? You know, I said I'll stay out of it. I wish I didn't make that statement. There's no reason really why I have to. But where are they with Comey, with McCabe, with Brennan, with all these people? They lied to Congress. They lied. They leaked. They spied in our campaign. I see Carter Page is bringing a lawsuit. That's good news. Where are they with all of this stuff? And, you know, what happened to Durham? Where's Durham? So, you know, you're asking me a question. These people have been there a long time. And I know FBI, and FBI is great at the levels that we talk about. But it's inconceivable. You would think if you're in the FBI or Department of Justice, this is the biggest thing you could be looking at. Where are they? I've not seen anything. I mean, they just keep moving along, and they go on to the next president. They've been there for a long time. People don't understand this. They've been there for a long time. Some of them have served a lot of different presidents, and they have their own views. All I can say is I haven't heard, with all of the fraud that's taken place, nobody's come to me and said, oh, the FBI's nabbed, you know, the people that are doing this scheme. The FBI is looking at Dominion, which nobody even knows where they're based, which nobody even knows where.
We're basically done.
First of all, it's so pathetic. Like, just such a whiner.
But I mean, how hard is it to imagine? And, I used to go out. I don't know why I'm choosing. I know why I'm choosing this. But I used to go out to Michigan for the holidays with my ex-wife, and there was one member of the family who actually is now an ex anyway, so I can talk about him. And he would sit in a big leather chair and just watch Fox all day, and would just espouse the most bat crap crazy things in the world. And this is like him, but like 30 years from now, just sitting there with a beer going like, I've been waiting for the FBI to come by. I've sent in letters.
People, Comey.
Nobody comes by. This is the president of the United States.
I know.
And he's acting like he's just some dude sitting in a living room in, watching Fox, just going like, I sent the letter.
I mean, he is the creation of all of their misinformation. He is their Frankenstein, and who knows? I mean, it seems like some of the Fox viewers are turning on them because they're not being sufficiently supportive. I mean, Maria Bartiromo, who used to have this air of respectability, and I think won awards for her, sycophantic Wall Street reporting. Like, she goes on Fox and Friends the other day and says, I Instagram posted about this interview with Donald Trump, and my girlfriend, she tried to share it and she couldn't do it. And then she's alleging that basically Twitter and Instagram were censoring basically her friend, who probably had 3 glasses of wine and couldn't figure out how to share the post accurately. Like, that's the kind of rabbit hole that Trump has led these people down, and there's no getting back.
No.
I mean, there's no returning to sanity.
No.
Well, I mean, if you really believe that he represents your interests, whether that's because he actually does or he's just convinced you that he does, I could see how you would not want to let this go. Like, this is going to play with his base, I think, just fine.
Well, but the whole, I mean, he rode the first Trump event I ever went to. He was talking about how Bernie was right. The system is rigged. Hillary is rigging this system. And that was an effective message in 2016 because there are so many people who are disaffected and angry at the system. But he's created a cultural cult around that that's beyond just, general anger at politicians and politics that I think is widespread. He's made it so intertwined with his cult of personality and the emotions that come up with it. I mean, that Rush Limbaugh caller is a great example of it. You can't undo this. And these Fox personalities, they're either with him or they're against him. And where do you go from there? I don't know.
It's going to be interesting to see like where he goes and how he takes those people. I can tell you this, that like, I remember when Jerry Garcia died, everybody was like, what's going to happen to all those people who have been traveling around following the dead? And we just thought like there'd be these like huge like bands of people just sort of like walking through the country, looking for, I don't know, adopting fish or whatnot. So I wonder if Trump will just take, because we're talking millions more people than obviously deadheads, like if he will just like take them all and I don't know, march off a cliff essentially.
Well, I don't know about that. Like, it's always a combination of the larger social forces and the specific contingencies, right? Like, on the one hand, we know the stuff that gave rise to Trump is bigger than him. Right. On the other hand, he is a fairly exceptional figure in some ways. He's super famous. He's great at getting free PR from the media. So, this movement's going to be looking for a new head, and it might take them a while to find one. But I do think they're like, right-wing populism is not going anywhere.
Well, wait a second. First off, he's got to go somewhere. If he dies, that's my point. It's like, if he dies, what happens to these people? But he's not dead yet. So he's not going to relinquish them. I mean, I don't think him being president is necessary for them to continue to follow him in the same way. I think like he feeds their whatever need he satiates for them, he can do just as well as not president. It helped a little bit more, but I mean, we're talking like, millions of people who I think are going to still be, tens of millions of people probably, who are still going to be sort of like, he is going to be their leader. He's going to be articulating the sort of the aggrievement that they felt.
Until he appoints a successor and they follow that person.
I think that's going to take
Trump Jr.
than people think. I mean, I think the what he has captured in terms of how he acts, it's larger than it began as material interests. It began as hatred of the system. It began as hatred of immigrants. But the guy has become somebody that is, he's almost like godlike to these supporters, and they follow him with religiosity.
Well, that's what Q is.
But I mean, it's
that's what Q is. It's a religion.
It's crazy. I mean, and he has no checks on him, so he can just say random people, Comey, I got Carter Page on my side. Oh, and now he's turning on the Justice Department. We're gonna talk about the Justice Department not being sufficiently political on your end, like. This is the most politicized Justice Department in the history of the country, and the prerequisite for getting the job was being loyal to him. You're really going to try to make that case, but it doesn't matter. He can make that case. Like, it's all emotional. I mean, I could have never seen this coming in this way, how emotional the reaction is to him from his supporters, and it's spooky.
We're going to be talking. We're going to be talking to Bob Altemeyer. I'm still working on getting him on, but he is the guy who did all the clinical work on authoritarians, and who years and years ago was saying that we have 25% of the North American population are authoritarians, and he is the one who wrote that book with John Dean. Used a lot of Altemeyer's work on his book 10 plus years ago now, where he was talking about the danger that the Republican Party has become increasingly authoritarian, and that something could come from that. Well, it's one of those things where you don't want to be right, but it turns out he was.
I mean, the whole system that we have is authoritarian, right? Like, that is very much baked into the equation. Certainly there are degrees and there are differences within that, but I think it's a little bit dangerous to look at this as a matter of the psychology of individuals, when we know that there is a whole lot of things driving the psychology and the distribution of it at any given point in history. Otherwise, why would it be in flux? Why wouldn't it just be always?
I mean, I think that's
5%.
But I think his argument is, and this is why, and he was making this argument 10, 15 years ago, and had done 20, 30 years of clinical research, that there are 25% of North Americans who are right-wing authoritarians. He says there's a small amount of left-wing authoritarians. That from a clinical standpoint, over the course of 20 or 30 years, ending, probably in 2010, so 20 or 30 years back, clinical research. So for him, it is psychological.
Well, you can marry these things too. Like, it doesn't surprise me that a settler colonial society would produce authoritarians.
Yeah, like I guess that doesn't tell you what went into creating the psychology, right? Is it people are born that way, or is it that there is an powerful ideological apparatus acting upon them from the day that they're born, and
good question for him, and
drawn from various material circumstances in the world.
Well, yeah, I mean
presumably, right? Like, those people have been subjected to those people haven't been subjected to something particularly unique, right? I mean, the people who that 25% aren't the only ones who have been subjected to whatever the context is. There is probably a predisposition and then a context in the way that people react to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then there's authoritarian media that reinforces whatever the president, and they did this under Bush, but he was more ideological than Trump. Like, if Trump came out and said he supported single-payer health care, I have no doubt that a fraction of Fox News would be supportive of it, and a great majority of his base would be cheering from the rooftops. So,
well, that's the thing I think he showed, is that it wasn't necessarily an ideological thing. It is on some level. Now, there may be, contexts and material reasons as to why they are susceptible to that. But
authoritarianism trends right wing, so that's usually why you don't get.
He's got a very specific, clinical definitions of a right wing authoritarian and a left wing authoritarian. And from a psychological standpoint, you just don't see left wing authoritarians as much. And this is all, the followers. And he was worried, like, these people are out there, and it's just a question of the right person coming along to activate them. And you can go back and look at like his posts that he wrote in like the summer of 2016, and he was scared. He was scared.
I would like to see if this data could be tracked over time, because I think a lot of these trends we're seeing now go back to deindustrialization. They go back to the neoliberal turn of the 1970s. They go back to all kinds of social phenomena that created the political world that we have today.
Christianity is a great example of like the fact that the U.S. is this kind of evangelical Christian culture, and that's so embedded in things like that. I think that partly breeds authoritarianism too.
For sure. But I think stuff like religion and culture really is a trailing indicator of what's going on, the social forces on the ground, the movements or the lack of movements. I think the death of organized labor as a force to be reckoned with plays a big role in specifically working class people, mostly white, but not all of them, leaving the Democratic Party. And it's bleak out there, but it is really disturbing when you see working class people who are really scared of what's going to happen to them when Trump is not in office, because, he has convinced a lot of people that he's going to bring back the coal jobs. He's going to bring back industry or whatever. And, that's a bummer on a grander scale than when you see working class people who think that Democrats are going to fix all the problems.
Do you know what the total coal jobs are in this country?
Very few.
Fewer people than work at Applebee's, I would venture to guess.
I think it's not even close.
Let's look it up.
I mean, the coal jobs, I think, is like around 70,000.
But okay, so
people need jobs, right?
Oh, I agree. I just think it is amazing how oversized
in 2019, coal jobs fell 4.2% to 50,361.
Oh, it's 50,000. I mean, think about that. That is nothing relative to how much it captures the imagination. It is, like the idea that you couldn't, you couldn't just put all those people on a permanent pension. If the idea that you couldn't do that.
No one's going to do that.
Well, I can
see for somebody, and coal is just one example, but I can see for somebody who lives in the Rust Belt how, Trump saying he's going to bring back the manufacturing jobs, which was a unique engine of economic growth that probably can't be repeated. I could see how they might think that person's going to defend their interests over someone who's like, well, I'll teach you all to code.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think though, also the point that I just keep returning back to is the fact that there are such few jobs just indicates too how it's just it's a barometer of culture. Coal jobs. It's nothing more than.
Well, I think it's also been driven by an industry that has promoted this notion that
and promoted the emotion behind it.
Yeah. But it reminds me of just the failure of the Democrats, which on November 6th, Rahm Emanuel was on ABC talking about telling JCPenney voters that their jobs aren't coming back and they should learn to code. There needs to be a affirmative message, because it's the same problem we're having with COVID, that people can be confused over which party's handling that better because they got a check from Trump.
Yep.
But don't worry, Rahm Emanuel might still get a position in the Biden administration.
Oh my God.
The fact that it's still in the news cycle means it's there are advocates.
Jesus Christ.
It is not, however, just your average Joe who might be worried about the loss of Donald Trump as president. Sometimes it can be the more extraordinary John, as in Jon Voight,
or a chat,
who has a very disturbing message for you as to how radical Joe Biden is.
We're heading down a street that has no name now. We must not allow our nation to crumble. This is what they want, to destroy America. Let me warn you all that we are in great danger if we fall under a Biden administration. Our state, California, is being ruled by a leftist mob. Himself, Governor Newsom, is taking away our freedom, your freedom. He's a disgrace to mankind, he and his relative Nancy Pelosi, who has tried to bring President Trump down.
Pause it for 1 second.
Governor Newsom has destroyed many...
related?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's part of the left pedophile cabal. I don't know what to tell you. Angelina Jolie, estranged from him? That's her dad. I get it, girl.
Gotta be hard.
I get it.
Gotta be hard.
Lives of people who depended on their businesses. And now he wants to shut down again. He is a lie, like all the left that are trying to destroy the USA. I ask all to fight this battle now, to get them all out. I've been attacked by my fellow peers saying I am preaching violence.
Pause it for 1 second.
The truth is...
one of the things about peers, they are necessarily your fellow.
Right. It's a little redundant.
You don't need your fellow peers. It's just your peers.
Yes.
My own fellow peers.
My own fellow peers.
Let's watch this clip video.
Hello, my fellow peers.
Good.
I also want to just take a moment to appreciate the framing of this video. He looks like he's falling out of it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
too much
Yeah.
They all are. The left are burning and destroying our cities. We are willing to fight for freedom, not freedom to burn down our flag, but to raise her up with the glory of this land of the free.
Really freedom. I
But
mean,
the left are trying to stop these truths. Let us bring justice. Let the truth show itself.
You have to do a cut there?
That President Trump
Wow.
is the only man that can save this nation. Let us fight this evil now and know that God's truths will expose them all.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask all to pray in the name of Jesus, Moses, and all saints for their hands of safety to be on us now.
Ends.
The way in which we are being targeted will be hard to fix, but with all your love and prayers and truths, we can win this battle against this evil force that has taken over this country. We must get Governor Newsom out. He's destroying the people's freedom. We must remember who we are. We are a nation that fought the Civil War, and we won that battle.
What?
Let's not give up.
I wanted to do this whole thing. We're a nation that won the Civil War?
Yeah, I mean, against other people in our nation. Why wouldn't you pick World War II?
I think he meant the Revolutionary War. I mean, honestly, is there a way for someone to say we're a nation that did not win the Civil War?
Yeah.
I think maybe he's one of those people who thinks the war is still happening and the Confederacy will rise again.
Is he, when he talks about nation, do you think he's talking about
well,
I don't mean literally the nation. I mean the nation within a nation.
Right.
We won. Do you think he meant to do this?
A nation that was born and will continue.
John, I'm sorry. Did you mean to say Civil War there? Because how could you be a nation that didn't win the Civil War? You wouldn't be a nation anymore. Who can tell me a nation that did not win their Civil War?
Rome.
Rome did not win their own Civil War?
Well, I mean, I guess they fell apart after their Civil War.
Well, the empire fell apart.
Yeah,
I mean, there
England
are a lot
won
of
theirs.
countries that get pretty torn up by civil war, and I don't think anyone's really a winner. I mean, look at what's happening in Syria right now.
Right, but at the end, 200 years from now, if Syria still exists, they're going to say, we're a nation that won the Civil War. Well, I mean, obviously.
Yeah, well, I don't know if someone's working with him, but there is someone editing it and jump cutting it. So it might just be some poor schlep who's got to edit it together.
That was
Jon
my
Voight
favorite
paid
part of
him.
that. So there it
To
is.
me, I just want to say it's revealed to me there was an uncomfortable feeling when Robert De Niro was doing all his anti-Trump videos like 4 years ago, where the conservatives were like, "This is really lame. Celebrities are doing this to you," and deep down I'm like, they're kind of right. This is kind of lame. And the second they have to do it, I mean, they bring Jon Voight to the table. So
No, I love that too. Like they do that all the time. I mean, Ted Nugent, they embraced, and all of these other
and the My Pillow guy.
And the My Pillow guy, and I mean, who are the other ones? The woman from Clueless. What's her name?
Oh, right,
Stacey Dash.
Yeah, she's.
Oh, I thought you were
Like,
going to say
again, see,
Alicia.
She's going through something.
That would be really
not
depressing.
Alicia Silverstone. My poor heart. But
No,
like
she's in Vegan World.
she's great movie. But and Dion's ancillary. So that's Stacey Dash's character.
Oh,
but
okay.
anyway, they bring on these D-list celebrities and then go after the left the Democratic Party establishment for embracing celebrities. And Matt, you're right. We're right. It's stupid to bring on Beyonce and then lose to Donald Trump like Hillary did, or whatever, Katy Perry. But you don't get to critique the Democratic Party for doing that and then bring on your terrible versions of celebrities yourselves.
And again, we shouldn't forget how much of this is religious. It's always part of this stuff.
Right.
It's always part of it.
We need some leftist celebrities to, fight on our side. I feel like we don't have enough of them.
Shailene Woodley, Bernie supporters.
Russell Brand.
Yeah. You have the freedom to raise a flag.
Let's I like the idea. Look, you should have the freedom to do one thing, but not the other thing. That's what true freedom is.
It's also a reminder that, they're going to call you a communist no matter what kind of liberal you are. So maybe it doesn't matter.
Well,
a socialist.
What? I wasn't going to vote for Republicans, but then Randy Quaid told me to. So,
yeah. All right, let's go to the IMs here. Shelby from Phoenix, happy belated birthday, Sam. Thank you. Quinn from Indianapolis. Sam, it was your birthday over the weekend. Can I get a shofar? Yes, you can. Thank you. Eric Zachary, happy birthday. Ty from Tennessee, happy birthday. Happy birthday. John W. Defund the police should focus more on specializing what you want to remain of the police force. Social workers should be sent for wellness, mental health checks, with at most an officer driving them as potential backup. I don't know if you're reacting to this story in New York. They're doing this pilot program. And they're also rolling out pilot programs in LA, in San Francisco, in Dallas. City mental health teams will work in 2 high-need communities starting in February. They will include health professionals and crisis workers from the fire department's Emergency Medical Services Division. They will respond in place of the traditional police and paramedic teams, except in cases that involve a weapon or imminent danger. This, according to a statement from Mayor Bill de Blasio's office this week. Other cities, LA, Denver, San Francisco, are also set to kick off pilot programs of the same ilk. The project marks another way debate around policing is playing out in communities across the U.S. after the waves of protests and activism. NYC, LA, Denver, San Fran test programs are modeled after Eugene, Oregon's Crisis Assistance Helping Out in the Streets CAHOOTS program, which has been in place since 1989. In 2019, it responded to 24,000 calls for service, less than 1% of which required additional police response. And handling 1/5 of the city's 911 dispatch calls means that it saves $8.5 million in public safety spending, $14 million in emergency medical costs by handling and diverting mental health incidents, according to the program, which is good. We should be pouring that money into more services for folks with mental issues, and maybe into housing and feeding people. And hopefully that pilot program does well, and then we can start unburdening the police of other burdensome duties that they don't need to engage in.
Yeah. We'll see. I think a friend of mine put it really well, who I was doing the defined canvassing with, which is, we're not, it's not possible to abolish the police completely as long as we have capitalism, but we can shrink them until this institution is small enough to drown it in a bathtub. I really like that imagery.
Yeah, that comes from what's his face? From Grover Norquist.
Yeah, well, we have appropriated it for good. So sorry.
Left of the box. Happy birthday, Sam. Wishing your next year treats you better than your last. Thank you. Salinas Lefty. Can I have a shofar for my birthday? It was November 28th, like Sam. I'm hoping for a negative COVID test. I took the test on my birthday. My daughter and I were exposed due to my wife catching COVID at her job. Skilled nurse facility. Definitely not the best birthday, but it's 2020. What are you going to do? Quick update. Just got my positive result. Great.
Oh. All right. I'm sorry. Wishing you the best, man.
I'll give you this. I hope that it's, I hope that you don't have any
severe symptoms
at all. Leggy Socialist, RIP Sam, finally getting canceled by the Cap Hive on Twitter. Yes. Les, Princess Jamie, if you're going to talk down to us, please have your facts correct. I don't know what that's referring to.
Be more specific with your criticism of me.
Yeah, have your facts correct.
Yes, Princess.
I am.
What region? Teacher Dan, charters selecting parents is exactly right. As a teacher trying to remotely teach third graders, I can tell you right away who's going to be able to survive this less than best case scenario and who's going to struggle even more than they would if they were here. Indeed. Stephen from Florida, big massive dumps. Brindag and friends, what did you think of the New York Times article about socialist trust fund kids wanting to give their wealth away? What would be the optimal way to spend that? I did read that article. I mean, what's annoying about that article is like, why are you focusing on them? I guess it's sort of like a dog bites man type of story or man bites dog type of situation.
The New York Times knows its audience.
Right. But it was about like 100 millionaires. I don't know. Kids who are getting like massive trust funds, tens of millions of dollars, $300 million. I think one of them was getting, and that they're dedicated to, they identify as anti-capitalist and they're trying to give away their money.
I thought it was an interesting bait and switch because, the headline grabs your attention. Rich kids against capitalism. What's up with that? But a lot of the article is about how, the traditional model of charity, where you have NGOs controlled by rich people, is not so good. And maybe it would be better to give money to communities and let them decide what happens to the money, or, give it to causes that serve to dismantle the system that creates such wealth inequality in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't...
And so much of the like NGO world is there's too many like narcissistic things about it. I mean, I don't know.
We've done a couple of interviews on real problems with the whole philanthropical model over the years. I think over the past year and a half or so, we did at least a couple. And yeah, I was looking for them to go like, well, here's what I'm doing. I have donated, I have $300 million and I've divvied it up into, I've hired someone to tell me the 7 locations where DSA state reps can actually create a voting block that will, influence the outcomes in these 3 states or something like that. Or the other thing I was thinking like, I have $300 million and every Monday what I do is I go out in front of my house and I got piles of $10,000 and I just let people take it. And that's it. I mean, all of that would have been better.
Yeah. I mean, I it sounds so weird and it's very comical, but I just got like a lot of insight into how stupid so much of the philanthropic stuff is by watching Real Housewives, where all these vapid morons do is they do these charity work and they feel really good about themselves, but like it doesn't really go anywhere, and it's just an excuse for them to get dressed up and fight with each other, and like it's so much of society in LA and New York.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
it's just about themselves. It's all about themselves.
I was watching a bit of Bollywood Wives on Netflix too. It's like it's all the exact same things. It's these very expensive, glamorous galas that supposedly doing something good for the world.
Right, but they have no interest in following through about it. They don't really know where it's going. It's about signaling their virtuosity or their virtuousness is the right word.
There's a lot of different things that people could have done with their money in that article. It seemed to me that was just more like, I mean, it just sounds like it was unclear to me what the anti-capitalist part of it was. It was really more just like, hey, I'm very charitable and I'm willing to be so charitable that I'm just going to go down to being like a super, super fairly wealthy person as opposed to like an extraordinarily wealthy person, as opposed to like I'm doing anything that will like impact structure. You would imagine like one of them would say, like, oh, no, I'm financing these UBI pilots in 25 cities across the country for 5 years each, and as a way of building, some type of academic argument about the efficacy of UBI, or just anything that involved some major imagination. But yeah.
I think they gave to some pretty good sources. I got to read it again, but there are definitely good places where you can give your money to that are fighting against the root causes of inequality.
No, true. It was a broader point by, I guess, me, and an excuse for me to talk about reality TV.
Josh from Chicago. Like Jamie, I quarantined in order to see my family. On the drive back, I drove through Ohio, and holy shit, do the Trumpy parts of that state disregard mask mandate in place. Just getting gas outside the gas station was scary to watch. Grave Boobin. Sam, it's okay to give yourself a shofar. Thank you. Disco Stu, thoughts on your boy Matt Taibbi going full Jordan Peterson? There's a real problem on the left with elevating dude bros who once did a good article, a video once. Complete blind spot, so long as you say the right mean things about Neera Tanden or Hillary Clinton. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the Jordan Peterson stuff.
Well, I mean, I think that there are a lot of people whose politics don't extend beyond dunking on, annoying liberals, and they're not interested in actual policy, and then they're attracted to guys like that. I mean, Rogan is that type. Although sometimes I do think, Rogan brings on good people, but Taibbi, I feel like, is kind of going down that hole. I like Katie Halper. I know they do a show together. I don't know exactly.
Taibbi did great reporting for half a decade and leading up to the Trump era. It's just that he's turned his gaze towards media criticism, which
for a decade,
I personally don't feel like is his strength. Yeah, a decade.
And that's that's why I'm not willing to throw out those kinds of folks entirely, because even if I don't agree with the route they're going down right now, I just have so much deference, especially for Greenwald, I'm perplexed, but the reporting he's done in the past, so.
Look, we all need to dunk on annoying liberals once in a while. That just can't be your sole politics, your sole thing. Because, we gotta have an alternative if we're going to say those people are bad.
Militant apathy. Some interesting shit is happening at the Supreme Court right now. Might want to get Ian Millhiser on soon. Yes. I mean, I can tell you that my take on this New York State thing, I think some of the reporting on it is a little bit overblown. My sense is that if you're allowing 25% capacity in a restaurant, then you can allow 25% capacity in a church or a temple. I mean, personally, I won't go into either. Church, temple, restaurant. Not happening. But it does not make sense to have like a number cap in a church that holds 1,000 people. You're going to let 100 people in, or 25 people in, or 1,000 people, no. You should do, if you're doing 25% capacity, do that across the board as to where people are meeting. You got to have some measure of consistency. You also should have like other rational sort of mitigation things. Everybody's got to wear a mask or whatever, and I think that was a big problem with that New York State thing. But yeah, we'll have Millhiser on soon.
I think it was easy reporting and kind of, I don't want to say lazy because that might be too harsh of a word, but kind of lazy just because Barrett was involved in the decision and based on her religious background, it was easy for people to shit on her.
That ad from Kelly Loeffler is so effing gross. I just got my absentee ballot in the mail today. I hope we beat the brakes off those effers. I believe we can. Remember what I told you about the Georgia going blue in the general? I agree with Jamie. He's a Confederate. Science people don't care about your fee-fees. Just a highlight from the masked outside distance Thanksgiving side swap with my libertarian but voted Trump but still wears a mask father-in-law about taxes. Progressive tax systems are discriminatory, end quote. You get more money from billionaires if you install the flat tax. You don't think Trump paid 10% of his income taxes in 2019? No. Billionaires are constantly under audit. Look at Trump. And the classic, if I'm having trouble paying my mortgage, what gives me the right to go to my neighbor with a shotgun and demand they give me their money? I'd love to get him to call in, but he's too busy watching Newsmax. Yeah.
Damn.
Green 33, New Mexico 4, Chan 1. Bleh. Everyone I know in the service industry is trying to figure out what to do after the COVID. It's horrible. Everybody's dad. Hey, I'm our crew. I think the left needs to formalize and brand a set of economic metrics in which we measure how average Americans are doing. Right now, the establishment uses how the stock market and unemployment numbers are as how we're doing as a nation. We know this metric is so far removed from regular people. This is a vulnerability we need to emphasize.
Yeah.
Model based on wages, hours worked per week, savings, homelessness, hunger, union rates. You know, there was a move in like 93 or 4, sometime around there, into 5, to calculate the GDP so that you would also, which I think at that time was the GNP, so that you would, so right now as it is, like if someone breaks into this office and steals all the computers, the GDP will go up because I will go out, we got to replace the computers, and I buy the computers and this and that, but there's no calculation for like the hassle that I go through to get the computers and maybe to change the locks or whatever it is. And there was a movement at that time to calculate like real world costs into the GDP, that it's not just about what people go out and expend. It's like, what are the health implications of some of our economic activity? What is the quality of life implications of a dollar made? That's not quite where I think, is comprehensive enough, but it could theoretically be worked into stuff like how much stress is being felt. What does that cost? No. I got to go to the doctor. I need more medication.
Absolutely. And
with regards, go ahead, Jimmy.
Even in terms of just pure trying to get a picture of employment, unemployment doesn't tell the whole story because a lot of people are underemployed, which is to say, these manufacturing jobs went away. People were unemployed, but unlike the automation theorists believed, we don't have just a growing army of unemployed people. We have underemployed people because apps like Uber and the service sector in general came in to exploit the lack of jobs and the difference in wages between the shall we say the aristocracy of labor and the immiserated and the underemployed. So
California cemented that and modeled it for future states. So
yeah, and I mean, I think seeing Kristi Noem, governor of South Dakota, touting their unemployment rate during the middle of a pandemic while they advertised for tourism really drove home to me the sickness we have in this country, the way we look at that number, because we look at it as if it's just like a number about economic health, but really I'm increasingly looking at it as a measure of how well we're coercing labor in this country, particularly in the midst of a pandemic, but also like, why should we look at our, maybe underemployment in certain European countries is bad, but like maybe the low percentage isn't really that great of an ideal when we need to stop cooking the planet and all these other problems we got.
All right, I'm going to read 10 more IMs. Folks, we'll get to calls tomorrow. Fortunately, I did not undo the voicemail, right? I did not. So we didn't have anybody holding. That makes me feel a little bit better. A little bit better. We will get to calls tomorrow. I know it's a disappointment, folks. Joe Snuffy, Sam and crew, thank God you're back from holiday. I have a sketch idea for a show to teach people about neoliberalism. The show is about a guy who gets hired for work at a nondescript government agency. On his first day, the jaded older employee, played by you, Sam, explains that his job is to sit at a control board and turn off any alarms when they go off. He asks what the alarms are for, but the veteran, that's me, tells him it's not really important. It's their job to keep people from panicking because the alarms are scary. The new guy eventually decides to uncover what the alarms are for and eventually realizes they are fire alarms from homes and businesses in the town. He then tries to get the rules changed so that his agency does something, anything but snooze the alarms. And he's demanded as an upstart, radical idiot who doesn't understand how the world works.
I like that.
I like the... it sounds like a good role. I'm not sure it tells the full picture, but
we'll work out the details. It's just a first draft.
The
important thing is you're getting back in the game.
Exactly. Sam with a GD reference. What is that?
What's that?
That's what I said. Grateful Dead. Come on.
Oh! The Sunset Lake has really worked on you. I see.
Oh my goodness.
Sunset Lake LSD. Who wouldn't want some grilled cheese? Dude, I've been to 30 mega rallies, man. I've seen the best shakedown I've seen. I was explaining to my son, actually, about the Grateful Dead this morning.
Oh, my God.
What prompted that?
And what vocabulary did you use?
Listening to this, I heard that there was a song on the radio. And he started dancing to it. And I was like, oh, wow. And then he's like, I don't like this. And I said, this is the Grateful Dead. And he's like, well, I don't like it.
I feel the same way.
I went to 7 shows.
7?
Oh
Grateful Dead?
Wow, that's a lot.
Fine.
Yeah, it's a little surprising, right, for people?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, you are a boomer, so.
I feel like Bruce Springsteen kind of has some of those concert followers too, and Billy Joel. Well, now he has a residency basically in Madison Square Garden.
Emma, you're revealing your New Jersey heritage right now more than anything else.
You're being a little myopic.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what kind of people follow those guys around? They don't even have drugs.
Emma and Maya's parents
follow them around, but I think people repeatedly go to Springsteen concerts.
There were caravans of people.
Yes, I know.
Who go to these Dead shows.
Yeah. And that culture is still going, by the way. I did a report on Gathering of the Vibes a few years back for MTV Hive, and it doesn't matter that Jerry Garcia is dead. This is
right. There's other bands that it's more dispersed, but there's other jam bands, right?
And I thought Grateful Dead still performs with John Mayer too.
Oh yeah, they're around. There's always at least one member of the Grateful Dead who plays a Gathering of the Vibes, R.I.P. But it's this 60s counterculture, completely denuded of any political content it once had, and just the most individualistic, narcissistic aspects of it live on, which is perfect for our era if you think about it.
Yeah, but it's still a good place to get bean pies. Daver Rubin dating profile. Dave Rubin dating profile. I think it was you guys who were talking about Barack Obama being named Barry Soweto to conservatives. It was a fake story about that being the name on his college ID that was widely debunked. Also, you guys shouted out Behind the Bastards podcast on Tuesday for their Dave Rubin episode. And they have a few where they read Ben Shapiro's horrible masturbatory fiction novel and make fun of it. Highly recommended. Madman Sam. I don't know if everyone's student loan payback program is the same, but mine, which is private, the minimum payment stays the same regardless of the balance. So, for example, if someone has $50,000 of loans and Biden forgave $10,000, it does absolutely nothing for immediate relief. You still have the same monthly payments for the next 10 years. It changes nothing. Interesting. Moon in the Lake. Hoping Trump will fly to Brazil in December and ask for asylum. Can we sell him on this idea? Rank and file, there's still Trump nuts out on an overpass along my commute 4 or 5 days a week, waving Trump flags in very blue Northern California.
Good for them.
Charlie Kirk's punchable face. Sam, there's actually more authoritarians if you collect all the low, middle, and high authoritarian followers. I'm just going by Altemeyer's work. Buckaroo Samurai, neither party is delivering on the needs of the people. I think Trump fans know or don't care. He won't give them any help. What he gives them is real and tangible. Trump provides the cover and permission to hold and be vocal about their awful resentments. Shatadia, Newsom is Pelosi's nephew. Is that right?
No.
Oh my God! If that's true, I'm moving.
But he's her spiritual nephew. In
to
any
California,
case.
Sam, Matt.
Nancy Pelosi.
To California, my favorite state.
Ron Pelosi was married to the late Belinda Barbara Newsom.
What?
Who was Gavin Newsom's aunt.
I love it. Love democracy.
Kid tested, Politburo approved. Can confirm that Ohio is a disaster. All right, 3 more of these. Ban Don Gino. Coal mining jobs peaked in 1923 at 880,000, but addressing the deprivation in those communities will take top-down jobs program, without a doubt. Magnum's Lachlan. Proud member of the club of folks whose names Sam cannot pronounce. The best thing about police is that they're governed by cities. It's up to left cities to start defunding and showing it can be done with great results indeed. Teacher in Czech Republic. Sam, how do you feel about NYC opening up again? The schools here also opening. Cases still super high and the restaurants and shops open on Thursday. It's the people versus the economy all over the world. I don't think there's a problem in and of itself with schools opening, particularly for elementary schools. In fact, I think this was back in the spring. This is what I was saying they should do. Keep all the upper schools closed, keep the elementary schools open. I think they should use the upper schools to get more room, to get more kids in, but they need to close everything else in the community, indoor dining and whatnot, but we need money, and we can't do it without the money. Reggie 254. This is Reggie from Waco, Texas. I would like to know what happened with the black vote. I expected the black support for Trump to go down by 50%, but it seems like it went up by 4%. What effect did Black Lives Matter have on the vote? I don't know if it had any.
Isn't it a small change that we saw anyway?
It's a tiny change that people are paying a lot of attention to because it's weird. But I did see a map of a lot of the places where the movement for Black Lives really popped off in Minnesota went heavily for Joe Biden. So there is some evidence that it increased some Democratic turnout, especially among Black voters.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that, but we're going to hopefully,
I would wait to see it repeated by a subsequent Republican, in racist Trumpism. Because I don't know, to me, the idea that Trump would perform better than a standard Republican with the black community or frankly, any community is not that however you want to divide it is not that surprising to me.
Yeah, he's super, super famous. I'm less concerned about the tiny percentage of probably rich black people who voted for Trump than I am about all of the black people who don't vote because they don't think that it's going to improve their conditions in any way, shape, or form. And I think those are people that we should be orienting our politics around.
Well, I still always remember that great New York Times piece that came out in 2016 about black voters in, I think, the middle of the country who voted for Obama and didn't vote for Hillary because nothing changed. And
Malaika Jabali.
Yep.
Yeah, she's done some really, really good reporting on the topic.
On for the past week or two to talk about this very thing, actually.
People say working class, and it's a weird dog whistle for the white working class. But guess what? The working class is disproportionately non-white, so maybe we should be thinking about them.
Devoid reality. As a Eugene, Oregon pharmacist, Cahoots has made a world difference here. And yes, Jamie, come to Eugene, hippie central. Actually, my movie played at the Eugene Film Festival 20 years ago.
Claim to fame.
22 years ago. Sam Sedor. Can we get a shofar for Sarah Silverman, 50 years old, tomorrow? Well, I'll give it to her tomorrow. December 1st. It's not tomorrow. How many days are in November?
30.
Oh, then it is tomorrow.
December 1st?
Yep. Wyoming Ryan, you are the final IM of the day. I remember growing up and on Saturdays watching Looney Tunes cartoons where the white paddy wagon rolled around and two white coat lab guys take their nets and snatch up crazy characters and lock them in the loony bin. The idea of mental health people working alongside police isn't a new idea. In fact, it's been adopted by children's animation. All right, folks. Jamie, Matt, Emma, Brendan, good job today. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth